Hi, everyone. Welcome
Hello.
to the Resume Roast.
Yeah, welcome back. So it's actually for this is gonna be fun. So I'm gonna try to introduce Lisa, and then Lisa's gonna try to introduce me. I also know that there was a resume up there. But yeah, so we're just gonna quickly introduce ourselves. This is Lisa. She's a senior in computer science, and she has a minor in gender studies. She uses pronouns she, her, hers. She's from Oswego. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That was that was, accurate. Um, so this is Urjitha. Um, she is a senior in CS and she has a minor in management. She uses pronouns she, her, hers. She was born in India, but she grew up in the Middle East. And yeah, I think that was it also. Anything else I should have said?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. So a little about both of us. I think we did say we were seniors, but we also sort of met our freshman year, and we're just here to, look at some resumes and give some like simple do's and don'ts. Our like idea came up was like when we were reviewing a lot of the resumes for UB hacking and accepting applications, we were like, oh, we think like a resume workshop could be like really useful because there's a lot of experience that we've got from a couple of our seniors and like professors and people in the industry. So we just wanted to like really share that. So I think we're just going to jump straight in and look at Logan's resume. He is one of our leads. He's the other sponsor lead with Lisa. And I'm going to let Lisa get started on what she thinks about the resume.
Logan's resume. Wow. So I like the two column thing he has going on. I think it spices it up a bit more than like just having paragraphs with, everyone's information. But I think I'm just trying to think of anything bad about it. Some of the bullet points I think are a bit wordy. I don't think I would want to read through more than like one sentence on a resume. But as far as like everything else goes, I'm still trying to think of some more things wrong with it. How about you, Urjitha?
Yeah. So I actually want to get started with something like good. And I think this is really important for all resumes. I love that his name is like big and huge and not really like distracted by any other things. So it like says Logan Ramhap. It says like his like top interest, which happens to be cybersecurity and data analytics. It has his like email, phone number, and everything. So that's super cool. So it's, just giving all of the super important information right there. And I really like that. I also really like that his like sort of what he's doing in school is also right there. Because that's also really important. You would be surprised at the number of resumes that don't have that. And it's also one page. So all good things, very important. And I know they sound very basic, but it's like so important that you make sure to have a one-page resume and you have your name and your contact information, and also your, graduation day and stuff like that. If you're in school, that is. So high school, college, master's, PhD, whatever, make sure to have that. In terms of what I would change, I think I definitely agree with that in terms of like wordy points. If you look at the Town Plus, News Mood, Teaching Assistant, all of those, like I feel like the bullets could be more concise, just highlighting what he wanted. Or maybe he could also, just highlight a few words within those bullet points so that it like attracted their attention more. I think that's my top sort of thing that I would change. And if I want to look at something else that I want to change, it might be that he could maybe have a section for like UV hacking lead and first volunteering is like maybe leadership or something like that. Just so that it's like not like just in a separate island of itself, right? Like UV hacking lead just seems to just be there separately from like projects and experience. I just thought that could be cool. Yeah. What do you think, Lisa?
I definitely agree with what you said. Maybe there are like some other things he could highlight more. I think it's also important to like I listened to what you said earlier about like having all the contact information on there. it's also important to know what types of contact information to not have on your resume. So like if you have a personal website, like put that on there. LinkedIn, definitely put that on there. Phone number and email. Don't put your address. And try to avoid using like a personal email. So if you have like a really unprofessional email address, like that is a no for your resume. I have definitely seen more than a few resumes with like a really inappropriate email address on there, as well as addresses. And as far as like like in my opinion, like addresses and like other stuff like that just take up unnecessary information, or sorry, unnecessary space on your resume. So if you have any of that stuff on there, it's important to know that that's not really something that you should be putting on a resume, and you could definitely use like the space freed up for other stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. So now I'm going to try to do something, and I don't know if this is actually going to happen. I actually switched over to my resume on my screen, but I'm still trying to work out screen sharing. So just bear with me while I figure that out, as I just switched to my resume, but I'm not sure if it is showing up for all of you. So, just, perks of doing this online is great. Yeah. I'm going to start screen sharing again. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I think it's happening. So this is good.
It's happening.
We're really looking forward to it. Okay. I think it's going to be up there very soon. Please do put your feedback and any questions. I'm sure one of our moderators can view it and let us know. So if you look, I'm sorry for the terrible screen sharing. I'm learning.
Stop apologizing.
Yeah, so this is my resume right here. I think, Lisa, you should get started because I have a biased opinion.
Okay, yeah. So one thing I hate is the blue. Sorry to start off with something negative, but it just caught my attention right away. Personally, in my opinion, I wouldn't go with any sort of funky colors. Not that blue is a funky color, but like you get what I mean. Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's a really good resume. Like overall, it has your education, your LinkedIn. You have a custom link for your LinkedIn, which is also good. There's hyperlinks in your resume, I believe. Yep. So there's hyperlinks. So like the email address is linked, the LinkedIn is linked. That's all very important because recruiters don't like to do more work than they have to. So if you have everything linked on your resume, that is amazing. So like as far as your work experience goes, I also think that looks good. You're using a lot of action words such as performed, obtained, participated, and it's describing what you did in like a really short, concise sentence. UB hacking is on there, which is good. I will rag on you for still having UB Scientista on there. So maybe that should be something to update. Although I am biased because I am one of the leaders of that club. As far as the projects go, I see the project we worked on together is on there. And I think it describes, what we were going for with that project pretty well. With the second project, also, you'll see that she bolded the prize that it won at a pitch competition, just to sort of have that stand out. I think is really something extra too. Technical skills, I'm really torn about like seeing technical skills on resumes because some people like to see those technical skills, other people don't. Because it is something that you can like easily communicate in an interview. But as far as like having them, right there at the bottom just to see, and it's not taking up too much space, like I think that's pretty good. And it definitely rounds up the resume very nicely. I do know that you did this in Word, and I don't like that because I just think like formatting and everything, like personally when I tried it, it was so annoying to do. So I can definitely tell it was done in Word. So that is probably something else I would say is like maybe try to use like another platform such as um, like LaTeX or Overleaf to make your resumes in. And there's also tons of cool templates out there on the internet that you can like sort of base your resumes off of. That was kind of a lot, but
Actually,
I
this is
mean,
kind
to
of
be
funny.
fair, a lot of it was good.
Actually, this is very funny because I don't know if she's looked at my resume before. Like, I don't know if this is all like first time opinion or like opinion from before. But yeah, so there was a lot of like valuable feedback over there. And like the one thing that I would say like really stuck out for me was, don't make the recruiter do more work than they have to. And that's really like the underlying theme of like making resumes. And I heard this in like one of the internships that I did this summer where they were like, a resume is what gets you to the door. It's not what gets you the job. So don't like put too much pressure on yourself of being like your resume needs to be perfect or that's all you are. Like that one page is not all you are. It's just like getting you to the door. You're just getting that interview, you're just getting that, code assessment or whatever it is. It's just getting you into that door. So make sure to like make it as easy as possible. Cater it to every type of job. And like Lisa did touch on it of like I'm torn about the technical skills. I am too, because there's a lot of ways to do it and I actually have another sample that does it a little differently. But the reason that I kind of put these is like, let's say that there was like a software scanning a bunch of resumes and like trying to pick the best ones. Chances are, if so I have some product management tools over there and I am really interested in product management. So like those kind of internships and jobs, right? And now because I have those tools over there, like Figma, Trello, Airtable, and Mixpanel, they're all like tools that a lot of PMs use. So it makes sense that I put it there because now my resume is going to get flagged and they're going to be like, oh, this person has some experience with that. So it's just good to put those words in there if there is a chance that it's going to be scanned by a software, and you would be surprised by how many companies do that. But it's also important to keep it like really readable, even if it's read by a human or a software initially. And the whole reason that I have the blue lines is to really like cut it out over there. But I did open my resume earlier today. I haven't updated in a while. And I was like, I do hope the blue lines weren't there. So I'm going to, give it another update. And that's another thing. I think resumes are like a constant sort of work. Like it's never once and done. Like you can just be like, I'm going to let it go. Like you need to keep looking at it, editing it and things like that. Like there's things that I've not added over here that I should.
Yeah. And just to like add to that, like you can definitely format your resume differently based on different roles that you're applying to. Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same resume for every role. And what I mean by that is if you have like some more projects that are relevant, that showcase some skills that you would like to highlight for one role, but maybe not might be as relevant for another role, like you can definitely like add and delete those things like as needed. It's definitely like an iterative process, getting to like a resume format where you're like, all right, this works. I can put my information on here and, it's not like too much to them.
Yeah. I'm just going to try to pull up the next resume that we wanted to look at. I'm actually going to start. Okay. I think I was able to pull it up here. It should show up very soon. Yes. So this is some gold that Logan and I found on the internet. So this resume is, let's look a little bit away from like, I guess the theme, but like just critique it as if it's a real, resume that somebody applied with. Yeah, Lisa, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go ahead. Why not?
Okay.
First thought is this is a lot of words. I immediately don't want to read through this. And I will probably, if I was a recruiter, I would probably send this in a group chat with a bunch of my other coworkers and be like, hey guys, look at this really, really bad resume that I just saw. So yeah. So I was saying too wordy. A lot of pictures, which is like, your eye is being drawn all over the place. The point of resumes is to like focus on specific things that you want to, highlight to these recruiters, like projects, work experience, coursework, etc., etc. And you don't want their eyes being pulled in like a million different directions. Um, so yeah, that's definitely one of the faults that I think this resume has. Um, I do like that there's like some sort of consolidated area for like awards and achievements, and you're able to see like the education clearly. So I like that that's in its own section. But as far as like the rest of the resume, yeah, definitely not my favorite one ever. What about you, Urjitha?
Yeah. Actually, this brings up a really valid point. So I mean, depending on where you are, like in your career, right? Like high school, or like if you're a freshman in college versus, if you're an upperclassman looking for actually more serious internships and jobs, there's like a little bit to it. But I think everybody gets to a point in their like, I guess, resume editing period where they're like, I guess, should I add more color and should I have like a more, um, you know, like so to say, like a more graphically pleasing thing for the eyes or something like that. Not that I'm saying this one is, but people do like, colorful templates and things like that. They're like, oh, that's more eye-catchy and stuff like that. People design it on Canva, and a lot of other things, and make it more like a flyer. And I've heard both sides to this. So the first part is that people like it when it's like an in-person career fair. So like, let's say that you're going in and talking to this person and handing a resume. If there is some color and there's like some things that are popping and stuff like that, people will look at it a little bit more. And that's kind of what I've heard. But again, the problem comes with the format of these things. When you put it through a software resume scanner, it's probably not going to detect a lot of things and you're going to get rejected straight up, even though you have a good resume with good content. And that was just because of the way it looks. So I kind of look at this similar to that, where like, I don't know, maybe this person was trying to be a high school teacher. This is pretty cool for that, Like I'm guessing you would make a lot of flyers like this and stuff for did I say high school? I mean like kindergarten. Um but yeah, so this is like makes sense for kindergarten like teachers, right? So like there's no one way to do it, but I think the key to that is like if you're like maybe a UI UX designer, or like if you're trying to do for more like a graphics kind of design jobs, then it makes more sense to have a resume like that because you're also showing your work. It's a little bit like your own portfolio along with it being your resume. So in that case, it makes sense. But what I've mostly heard from recruiters, especially in the middle of the pandemic, where they're like reviewing so many applications, so many resumes, it's like stick to the more normal general template because they're just used to reading those, so they can like their eye catches everything, right? So they just know what to look for. So I do, recommend that, and that's why I went for a more traditional approach than this. But I think I agree with a lot of things that Lisa said. And I think, again, like going back on it, I think education, and some of those awards and achievements and stuff like that, I think those sections are always useful because it's just like important and it like it's simple, like, you get qualified yes or no. I'm going to pull up the next resume, and it'll show up very soon. And this is actually a very interesting format. So I'm like intrigued to hear what Lisa has to say. And like, this is also like another like pretty divisive thing because like some people in the industry are like going for this, some people are not, and like talking about it. So you can go first, Lisa. I think that's just been a tradition now.
Yeah, sure. So as far as this one goes, I actually like the whole aesthetic of it. Um, like it's not like it's very pleasing to the eye. Like the other one had a lot of harsh colors. Like this one uses color, but like not in a way where it's like drawing your eye like all over the place. Like I think it's emphasizing like the right things. And I definitely am a fan of like the 2-column thing. I think it makes it seem like less content when actually there's a lot of good information on a resume like this. Um, like we were saying before, recruiters don't like reading more or like doing more than they have to. So I think the 2-column thing really gives that illusion that there's like not as much information on this resume. As far as like my critiques of it, I think as far like I'll go from the top to the bottom. So I think the objective statement is good to have. I've definitely heard recruiters being like, you should have like a clear and concise objective statement on your resume. I mean, there's other other really strong resumes without an objective statement. It really depends on like the recruiter and sort of what your overall goal is. But if you know for a fact that, having an objective statement would make your resume stronger in like a certain situation, like that's definitely something to work on and think about putting on your resume. And it also tells like the recruiter a little bit more about you. Like you're not just, a list of qualifications on a piece of paper. As far as like the picture goes, normally I would say like don't put your picture on your resume, but of course like everyone has different goals that they're like trying to achieve, and different jobs require a different type of resume. So as far as the picture goes, I've definitely seen some where the resumes have pictures and they're really out there. Like the picture is like the only thing like in your main line of view on the resume. But as far as this one goes, like it's up in the corner, like it's just there, and it's not like doing too much.
I'm actually very passionate about the next thing, if you don't mind.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, so the next question actually on the stream was by Tiramisu Boy 99. Are skill bars really a good idea, though? In my opinion, it's easy to nitpick a resume and say what's 20% of Python you don't know and things like that. So that's a really great question. And if you look at the skills over here, it says presentation and public speaking, and it has like it's 5 dots, active listening 5 dots, and then there's like written and oral communication, and they gave themselves like 4 dots. And if you look down in the bottom, they have languages, and again, it's like the dot system of like English is 5, Danish is 3, and like Spanish is 2. The thing with this is maybe, yeah, it looks pretty, and I think that's why people put it on there. Like they're like, oh, this is cleaner than just listing some things out. But it's really like, what do these dots mean? Like if you go into it, right? So like you say that, oh, I guess I'm like pretty good at public speaking, but I'm not that good at like oral communication. But if your standard is different from like a recruiter standard, then like what does it even mean? Like there's no sort of general understanding of what these dots mean. So it doesn't make as much sense. Also, another thing, when people do this with like programming languages like Python, JavaScript, or like anything else, and they do it with dots or any other symbols, again, it's like very confusing because an engineer might be like, you can know a lot and still like not be well versed in it. And you could just put a lot of dots for it, and you maybe actually do know it well, but you're not confident, so you might put lesser dots on it. So it's really not helping you. And it's again with a piece of like, if it was a scanner, like a software, just like looking at a bunch of resumes, this is not really going to get recorded as much. So it might just be easier to just list a bunch of skills that you have, or also be like, you're proficient, or you have this many years of experience. So you have 10 years of experience with Python, or whatever it is. I mean, 10 years, and I'm throwing it out there. I don't think that many people will have that. But just anything like that, I would just say like putting a time on it, or being like where you learned it, is really useful. So when people say like, oh, I worked on this project with these languages and technologies, I think that makes a lot more sense, because they're like, oh, you worked on this project with these skills, so now you know them, or you know this much about them. So I think Lisa can agree to that, because I think that's a very common sort of understanding on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But then also, in terms of like the skill bars and everything, it's also very subjective. So like you can say like, oh, I'm like intermediate or advanced, like in this sort of thing. And like your definition of that could be very different than someone else's definition of like, oh, being advanced at like Python or whatever. So I think it causes more issues than it is trying. Like I think it just causes more issues, like too much stress to deal with for like just a resume that is trying to show like your skills. Like if you want to have your skills on there, just list them, like don't put the skill bars. Yeah.
Some things that I do like about this resume, I'm gonna say again, like
Okay, there's a typo,
oh,
so I'm pointing that out. Personal projects.
oh, I like almost missed that, but that's a very good point actually, Lisa. So I've heard this from like a few, I'm gonna say like maybe like a CEO level, like a little higher up, so not exactly like a recruiter, so to say, but they were just like, the minute I see a typo on a resume, I just discard it, however good it is. And that was something very interesting that I heard, and like it always stuck with me since then. And their understanding of this is with like one CEO. I'm not saying this is a very common opinion, but I think there is some value to take from this, of like, they were like, if you're not able to check your resume enough and get enough opinions on it, and like check for like typos and stuff like that, then you're not that careful. So mistakes happen, of course, and that's totally normal. And I think that's why there's a good piece of like, you can send this around, send it to upperclassmen, send it to some people in the industry. And like, you can do this in many ways. You might also have like a career services center, so you could show it to them and get some review. But having more people look at it and judge it will give you a better understanding of what your resume comes off like. Because you might be writing it thinking this makes sense in your head, but it's like important that it makes sense to others. And like, of course, like there's not all recruiters are the same way, not all recruiters look at the resumes the same way, but there are just some like common standards which like, you know, will help you. So normally like, yeah. And then technical IT skills. Actually, yeah, I mean, that's another point. Even the personal project is spelled wrong. In sort of a tech, like anything in tech, like any kind of internships or jobs in tech, they really love when you do personal projects. So that could be through like, you know, through a hackathon, like you're here and you do here, or you work on it outside of your classes and stuff like that. I think companies really like it. And they like that you took initiative and you learned things outside of your classwork. So definitely try to do 1 or 2 personal projects, and that can be anything from like something simple like building your own website to like doing any other complex thing that you want to do. So like it can be anything, but I do recommend everybody doing personal projects. It helps create a better brand for yourself. Would you agree with that, Lisa?
I agree, and I think we should move on to the next one.
Yeah. I actually have a last one here. It should be queued up. My okay. It's getting queued up, so it'll be there.
There we go.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of color again. I do know that some people wanted to send their resume. If you do get it to me, so like if you send it to one of the organizers.
You can send it to either one of us.
Yeah, we can try. Yeah, we can try talking about your resume.
I think this one, not to change the subject really quickly, but I think as far as this one goes, a lot of the critiques that we mentioned before can also be applied to this one, like the skills graphics, like the languages, skill bars. I personally hate the hobbies section. Like, I just don't see a purpose of having it on there. Like, who cares? Your birthday is on there. I mean, I don't think that is like any sort of useful information to put on a resume. Work experience could definitely be elaborated on. Like, they put just the dates and like there's a brief sentence. The whole point of having work experience is to describe what you did at that job and what you learned. It's supposed to be like a point of conversation for a recruiter so they can see what you did and perhaps they'll be interested in it and can prompt you with more questions. If you just have like one sentence like that with a few words, there's nothing to go off of. So you need to make sure that you kind of have something substantial there, but enough to be like make someone want to ask you more about it. And yeah, generally like you'll have like a few bullet points like for every work experience you have on there. And that's usually enough for a recruiter to be like, hey, let's talk about this, or like, let me ask you more about this. Yeah. What about you, Urjitha?
Yeah, couldn't agree more with like everything that you said. And I do want to preface like this little last bit. I guess I should have done this at the start, but like Lisa and I are like no experts. We're just talking from like our experiences. And I also just thought about this for a second where a lot of the things that we touched on, a lot of how these resumes look like were more like college students, more like upperclassmen. So when it comes down to like your freshman resume, right? So like your high school resume are the things that you use for your first 2 years in college. And I'm sure, Lisa, you have one of those. I wish I could find mine. I would pull it up. It was definitely
mine was bad.
Like,
it was bad.
Exactly. So like, it's a process and you keep, as Lisa said earlier, you keep iterating through it and you try to make it better every time by more opinions, adding more stuff to it and things like that. So I think, I'm going to consider this as a high school resume, right? And I'm going to review it as that and see like how we can make it a better high school, like / freshman, sophomore resume. I do tend to see a lot of trivial information. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say really quickly, like if you don't like ask people to look at your resume, like you're not going to make it any better. Like if you just do it and you're not like open to getting any feedback, like then you're done. Like you're not going to have a good resume, like period. And you have to be ready to receive those criticisms. And I know it's hard because resumes are something that people put a lot of effort into, and like you want to have a good resume, and sometimes it feels a little weird when someone is like critiquing it, but it's like important to remember, like, not taking it personally. They're not critiquing you, they're just critiquing like what this thing is that you're potentially is good, like they're trying to help you. And that is definitely something to remember. And I definitely would not have learned all of these things about resumes if I hadn't put myself out there in the first place and asked people to look at it for me. I remember the first time I was a freshman, and a senior that I knew looked at my resume. He was like scribbling stuff. He was like Xing out stuff, and he was like telling me to my face, "Okay, yeah, this is bad. Like, don't put this on here. Like, blah 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 blah." And at first it was just like, "Oh my god!" Like, it just feels like they're just like they don't want me to put any of this on there. Like, they don't think it's important, but like it's definitely like from a helpful perspective.
Yeah, actually, I feel like I remember this day, and I think I was also there.
Yeah, it was Greg.
Okay, it was Greg. Yeah, so it's a common actually.
Any of my alumni out there know Greg?
Yeah, so our common friend Greg, so our freshman year, he was a senior, he was graduating, he was in some of the clubs that we were in, he did the same thing for me, and I actually had another similar resume. And like, actually, a spoiler alert, we're gonna have another sort of alumni chat with leads very soon. Make sure to check in on the schedule. And actually, there's Harshita, who was actually a director for UB Hacking 2 years ago, and she reviewed my resume my sophomore year, and she left a lot of like critiques over there, and like definitely like hurt my feelings a little bit, but
Harshita, if you're watching.
Yeah, Harshita, if you're watching. So it definitely hurt my feelings a little bit, but I think all that was so helpful to me, because that's how I got to where I am now in that resume, right? So when somebody reviews it and I'm like really hitting home with the point, because Lisa spoke about it a little bit, but don't think on you, they're just commenting on your resume, so don't take it as a reflection on you, but do take their feedback and make changes. So when it comes down to sort of transitioning from that sort of high school to like the sophomore resume, that's like an important period, because I think your resume changes a lot at that time, right? So in high school, you're definitely allowed to have like your high school name, some of your top achievements in high school, any AP courses that you might have taken, any leadership volunteer activities, all of that makes sense, but really try to keep it to one page. We have seen a lot of high school resumes and a lot of other resumes as well, more than a page. So really try to bring it down to a page. And once you bring it down to a page, you automatically start focusing on the most important information. So you would start taking off stuff like address, date of birth. Those things don't really matter. And like when you start needing space, you're going to move it out. Also, when you're taking a resume format from anyone, please get rid of any of the placeholder words. Like if you look at it over here, like 1997 to 2001, it has the the placeholder words that were there when you get this format somewhere online, which is fine. You can get a format online, but definitely take off the placeholder words and add your own words, or just like leave it empty. And when you transition into that sort of more college resume, try to take your high school stuff off, as in when you can add more things in college, right? So don't be like a college junior, senior.
Oh, sorry.
Don't be a college junior, senior, having like your high school achievements. It's really cool and people love it. You can put it on your LinkedIn, you can put it on your website, put it anywhere else, but your resume is not the best place. So yeah, Lisa, what's up? So I'm
sorry. So I just wanted to mention something really quickly, because I saw a question pop up in chat asking what sort of things got X'd out of my like really bad freshman resume. Anything from high school got X'd out. They were like, do not put that stuff on there. Like, it's not important. It honestly takes away from like other things you can be focusing on. And at that point, I had become involved with a club. So they were like, this is something valuable that you can put on here. It wasn't on my resume at that point. So they were like, delete this high school stuff and make room for some of your leadership experience you have, or your club experience you have. And at that point, my resume I don't think it even took up like the full page. Like, I was just putting stuff on there to make it take up the page. But they were like, you don't even realize there's other really valuable stuff that you can put on there, because you just have all this high school stuff there.
So I think I'm actually going to stop screen sharing and we're going to wrap up. So if there's any other questions, we can answer them, or we'll also have like another alumni. We can ask Lisa and I, and actually some of the alumni, those questions. But I do think we're going to transition very soon into our next workshop with Twilio. So very exciting. Make sure to watch it. Yeah. Anything else that you want to say, Lisa?
No, just Lizzie from Twilio is going to be giving an awesome workshop on how to use some of the Twilio services. So make sure you tune into that. Twilio is awesome. We love them. And yeah, I hope you gain some valuable information from this resume roast. Um, and don't be afraid to, ask for feedback and to get people to look at it. But yeah, so I think that is it with us for now.